Hello admins, how we doing out there? The first thing I'd like to do in this video this week is thank all the lodges that hosted the chairman of the board, Bruce Massapus. He got some lodges, had some unique things going on, so he had some members to take back, so we appreciate that. There were also lots of lodges that made donations to Moose Charities, to local community projects. So that was all fantastic. That made his time. There was some first responders that showed up to several lodges, and he always likes that. So that was excellent. I also want to say a thank you to Mr. Henry Carroll for being the person in charge and being the host and taking him around this year. So we appreciate that, Henry. Real quickly, I've had some questions coming up on the end of the year, and while we're still working on numbers about Premier Lodge Awards and certain statistics and categories that we're always kind of looking at. So I'm going to go through those today. Right now, as of Monday, the association is down 1,200 members. So we've had lots of jumps. Usually in the first week, we usually have quite a few jumps in those numbers where they're going in the right direction. Because we were at this time last week at 1,600, so we jumped 400 over the week. The weekend kind of stalls out. There are lots of new applications in the program. So those lodges that I do remind you, you want to get them enrolled by the end of the month. Because again, we ask you to always put those applications in right away, but they don't get counted as members until they're enrolled. And yes, they need to be voted on first. So there are some memberships hanging out there, applications that are getting to be more than a couple weeks old. So you'll probably be hearing from myself or from Northern Territory, Jesse, Germany, here at the end of the month if we've not got those enrolled and they've been out there for a few weeks. Really shouldn't take more than two. Even if you're going from one meeting to the next, it's usually 2 weeks. Occasionally off is there's a fifth month, or we skip a week sometimes, so it might be 3 weeks. But in general, no, that's not normally how it happens. So what I'm going to go over is the all stat report that we send out to lodges, and kind of go from that, from what we're looking at for the numbers that we want to review and for Premier Lodge Awards. If you are a lodge out there that is on the verge of getting a PLA, and have questions about a certain number or what have you, please contact your territory manager. We'll be more than glad to help you. We'll send you an all stat. If any of my lodges need an all stat sent to them, contact me. I'll send you the updated version. All stats. Some of that information is updated daily, some isn't. So I can kind of go over that. One of the things you're going to look at for Premier Lodge Award, and obviously what we're always looking at, you're hearing us say +1. We need to be one more member than we were last year. So what we want to look at working on to get our numbers up is retention. Again, it's always easier to get someone to renew, someone we already have, than getting a brand new person. When we're looking at retention numbers, though, what we're specifically looking at is anybody that's expired up to March 31st. Because if they expire April 30th, they're still in the system, so it's not going to affect those numbers for this year. Again, if anybody wants to renew, we're always encouraging somebody to renew. But just so we understand, for your retention numbers to get them better by the end of April 30th, it only is talking, the number only happens if they are expired as of March 31st or earlier. Because if it's later than that, again, if they expire in April, they're technically not expired till April 30th, and that's when the day rolls over for the year. Your retention renewal section's on there. We encourage 80%. That's a number we're always striving for. You don't have to have 80% to achieve a Premier Lodge Award. It's just that's where you're striving at to make that +1 easier. +1's the only thing that actually matters for Premier Lodge Award, not the actually hitting 80%. Also, then below that, you're going to see production, and you're looking for preferred members percentages. Again, that doesn't actually affect the Premier Lodge Award, but we want the average to be about 7%. We have lots of lodges that are much lower than that, and that's because, the bartender administrator is taking all of those applications, which they get a lot by default by being there. But what we want to make sure is happening is that a bartender isn't taking a sponsorship of someone who walked in with another member, and that member technically brought that individual to the lodge. That person should be getting credit for the sponsorship, not the bartender. Below that, you're looking at approved orientations and enrollments. Again, the lodge has to have 6 throughout the year. So, the best thing is every other month. Some lodges offer it every month, and that's perfectly fine. What we can't do is wait until February, March, and April and try to have 2 per month to try to catch up to 6. We will not approve more than 1 per month. You, as an administrator, or if you have a Heart of the Community chairman or a retention person, maybe you have someone in the lodge help putting that into LCL, that gets reported into LCL. You can backdate those, so if you forgot to put in last month but you had it, you can go in there, you can backdate it. Also, if you are a lodge that says, let's say you have the same time every month, so you always have it the first meeting of every month, you can go ahead and put those in there. Then it's the territory manager's job to go and make sure those are being offered. Again, even if no one shows up, your lodge is getting credit for offering it. We want to find a way to encourage people to show up and come to those. But again, as long as you've offered it, you're covered. Excuse me. Then we're talking about the Heart of Community. Heart of Community needs to be reported. It needs to be reported every quarter, and you need to get a good or better grade for a Premier Lodge Award. Again, those are always due by the 15th day after the quarter is over. You get plenty of notices when those happen. But we suggest that you don't wait till after the quarter is over to put everything back in for the last 3 months, because we quite often forget something. Also, in order to get a certain grade, you need to make sure you're filling out that Heart of the Community report correctly. There is a document on the website, and again, we can always send you one if you request one, to show you how to fill that out properly so you're getting proper credit on those, because we have lots of lodges that are not doing it correctly. Yes, for example, for endowment, you're giving 3 endowments, hopefully 1 each month. You're listing that as 3 different projects. Let's just say it's $100 each time. So you've reported, February, March, and April, and you put in there 3 and $100 each month for a total of $300. You're only going to get approval for 1 because it's just for giving endowment for that quarter. So instead of listing all 3 of those separate, you could just list, endowment $300 for that quarter. That's all they're asking for. If you're doing a project, say you take veterans and someone's driving them to the VA in the name of the Moose, and the Moose is doing the project, you don't get to put down each week individually or each month individually. That's for that quarter you did that project. So that's just really one project there. So just kind of remembering that's how that works. Excuse me. Then under that, you have to have had a Moose of the Year reported last year. That's a requirement. No ifs, ands, or buts. I won't talk about Moose of the Year right now because that'll be coming up here pretty soon. I'll be doing that in the future video. You had to have representation at the convention in last year in Orlando. So you had to have somebody there last year to get a Premier Lodge Award this year. If you're working on for next year, you'll have to have someone at Reno there to get credit for a Premier Lodge Award next year. That's how that works. Excuse me. Your overall Moose Charities giving. The lodge has to give $1 more than last year or hit the per capita medium that has been set by Moose International, and that changes every year based on the overall giving of the organization from the year before. This year it's $6.51, so it's actually quite a bit lower than it has been in previous years. So again, you have to either hit $1 more than last year or hit that per capita average of $6.51. Excuse me. You also have to give endowment and turn that in 10 months out of the 12 previous months. Again, we want you to send it in every month, but they understand that sometimes some things happen and you forget one, or there's a mistake here or there. So they're asking for 10 out of 12, but again, that should be sent every month. And I encourage you to send that as soon as possible in the month. So back in early April, we're in April now, when you receive your AR payment, your statement of account, that's not due till later on the month, but I always say get it out of the way, get it paid for, especially if you're doing it the old-fashioned way and sending a check through the mail. You want to send that as soon as possible. Same thing with Moose Charities, because you want to get credit for that month. And if you send it really late, you may not get credit for that month. It may roll over because they give you credit when they receive it. So all month long in March, you collected endowment. The first week of April, you should have been sending Moose Charities an endowment check for what you collected in March. Then you would get credit for April giving because they received it in April. Excuse me. Also, you have to have your AR payment or statement of accounts, what you owe Moose International. Has to be, you have to owe less than the previous year or be at zero. So if you're a lodge, like most lodges do that are current and paid up, you have to be at zero at the end of the year. Or if you've had a few payments and got behind one year, we've had this with lodges, especially during COVID, some lodges got behind a little bit. As long as you owe less on that than you did the year before, you're okay. When you're looking at that AR section, account receivable section on your Allstat, when you see a negative number or the difference on there, that is where you were at on your AR compared to the year before. It's not how much you owe. So that number could go up because you had more members, so therefore you had more liability to pay, you had more dues you owed Moose International, so that number can go up. That has nothing to do with your actual how much you owe to Moose International on your statements. That comes on your statement of accounts, and you want to look at that page and make sure that where it says, current balance, owed, that needs to be paid off. And I think that is it for this. If you have any questions, again, feel free to reach out to myself or the Northern Territory manager. We're getting really close to the end of the month. It's the end of the Moose year, so make sure we're out beating those bushes, making sure we're contacting some expired members. I've been doing my retention reports and contacting members via email and making phone calls. And I will say this, I've gotten several that have said, thank you, I forgot, or I sent mine in just the other day, appreciate you giving me a call. There's also some that have come back and, they've made their complaints. Either they can't afford it, they don't see the value in it, they've had a situation in the lodge. When I do get those emails back, I do forward those to the lodges so they can see those, and the board of officers can review that and address that situation if need be. All right, thank you very much. You guys all have a good week. Take care. Bye.